Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Susan Ware. Well, it appears the United States is at war with Iran. And so I thought I would chime in just to talk a little bit about the question, what is an Ayatollah? We probably all now know that Ayatollahs are Muslim and that one of them has ruled over Iran until his very recent assassination. So, there are a few things that I can share about Ayatollahs that might help you get your bearings in this brave new world. The first is that Ayatollahs occur only in the smaller of two major branches of Islam. There are about 2 billion Muslims in the world. Christianity has slightly more followers than that, but Islam is growing faster. Other religions don't even come close to these large numbers. Those 2 billion Muslims fall under two major branches. One is called Shia or Shiite, the other is called Sunni. All Muslims, be they Shiite or Sunni, share most things in common. They all follow the five pillars of Islam. Those are one, the profession of the faith, two, praying 5 times a day, three, giving charity, especially at Ramadan. And something I find endearing about Islamic charity is that there's always special attention paid to orphans. Uh, the fourth pillar of Islam is fasting, especially during Ramadan. And the fifth is making a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your lifetime if your health and wealth permit it. The 7th century AD, Arab prophet Muhammad established these five pillars. He managed to unite 360 clans into one super clan. Those 360 clans had been at each other's throats for generations. Blood feuds never ceased. You killed my cousin, so I have to kill your sister, and so on and so on and so on. So by uniting them, he created quite a force to be reckoned with. He also gained opposition in his hometown of Mecca because there was a tourist trade of each of those clans coming about one day a year to worship their god in the arena in Mecca. And when he changed those 360 deities into just one, Allah, that meant a big drop in the economy for Mecca because there were far fewer tourists. There wasn't a group coming through about every day of the year. Anyway, so after Muhammad died, there was a question, who should succeed Muhammad? So in 632, this question spawned a dispute. And that dispute divided Islam into two main branches, Shia and Sunni. Only Shia Islam has an Ayatollah. There are very minor differences between the two groups otherwise. Slightly different ways of doing rituals, slightly different sayings attributed to the Prophet that are not actually recorded in the Quran. So, Shia Islam has a majority of the population in only 3 countries: Iran, Iraq, and Azerbaijan. Of those, Iraq and Iran have had actual ayatollahs. Azerbaijan has no interest in one. Uh, the recent rule of ayatollahs dates to the successful Islamic revolt in 1979, in which Shiite Muslims overthrew the Shah of Iran. The Shah had been a more Western, secular ruler. This recent Ayatollah has not had a very flattering regime. He has censored thought in Iran so that critics of the government, whether they're journalists or academics, are beheaded. And this Ayatollah has also earned an atrocious record on human rights. So the Ayatollah reminds anyone who loves democracy to keep one eye on whether it's safe to criticize the ruling party, and the other eye on human rights. Are people being disappeared overnight? Are arrests and killings being made without trials, for instance? So, Shiite Islam has a vision of theocracy. The political leader, the Ayatollah, is chosen from among religious leaders, clerics, and he enforces religiously based laws. In this respect, Shiite Islam merges two offices that are kept separate in Sunni Islam. Those offices are the Imam and the Caliph. The Imam is the spiritual leader, and Imam often leads Friday prayers, for instance, in many mosques. Caliphs, though, are far less numerous. They historically had an empire under Islam. And indeed, so they rule over the entire Islamic world, not just a single country. That makes caliphs different than ayatollahs. Now, the West has had more historical contact with Sunni Islam than with Shia. The branch that has an Ayatollah is even more sort of new and different to most Westerners than is Sunni Islam. In the Middle Ages, Sunni caliphs oversaw empires that were very well respected, and they even ruled over most of Spain between 711 and 1492. These caliphates kept alive ancient Greek advances in math and medicine and philosophy. Indeed, a lot of the instruments that surgeons use today were invented under one of these medieval caliphates. And when censorship started to weaken or loosen in the rest of Western Europe, the universities in like France and England turned to universities in Spain because they'd been the only ones to really keep alive this tradition of learning that dates back to ancient Greece. And so when they uh, got started, having a renewed interest in like Latin and Greek texts, they had to translate them not out of Latin and Greek, but out of Arabic. So that is the nature of the West's contact with Sunni Islam. There is really no relationship between an Ayatollah or even Shiite Islam at all and the Taliban or Al Qaeda. The Taliban and Al Qaeda stem from Sunni Islam, the other major branch. The Taliban and Al Qaeda have far less history and far smaller followings than does Shia Islam. The Taliban and Al Qaeda arose only in the 20th century. And according to the Islamic historian Bernard Lewis, these sort of reactionary Sunni movements began as sort of defensive postures in the Islamic world due to humiliation that beset the Islamic world at the end of World War I. The Ottoman Empire was no more. And before that, before World War I, Christianity and Islam had shared prestige and indeed had overseen really glorious civilizations, each of them for many, many centuries. There were certain battles between them, we know, even military battles. But both the Christian and the Islamic civilization were advanced, sophisticated, and rich. In Lewis's words, over the 20th century, the Islamic world became relatively poor, ignorant, and weak. Oil in the Gulf states raised the reality and the image of the Muslim world as the 20th century went from its early decades to its later ones. So, the next thing to know about Ayatollahs is that the Ayatollah and Shiite Islam generally defy any simple map of friends and enemies. Interests and alliances shift rapidly. So, for instance, ISIS targets Shiite cities. In Afghanistan, the Taliban frequently targets Shiite areas to attack. And those differences go back even to the Afghan-Russian War. The Iraq War that President Bush launched actually bolstered the relative power of Shiite Islam in Iraq vis-a-vis Sunni Islam. So the alliances shift, and it's the who is a friend and who's an enemy changes. Shiite rage against the West operates primarily through the government of Iran. Small non state terrorists come from the Sunni branch, of which they make up only 1 to 2%. So, the branch of Islam that spawned the Ayatollahs of Iran does not represent Islam more broadly, as you've probably gathered by now. Shia Islam hosts a tiny minority of Muslims, and not all Shia Muslims even want an Ayatollah. In fact, oppressive and militant Islam do not represent Islam more broadly. Shiites total just 10 to 13% of all Muslims. The only other school of Islam that seeks to trample on human rights or even try to conquer the West militarily in the spirit of jihad constitutes just 1 to 2% of the remaining Islamic world, which is the Sunni world. That 1 to 2% is in a sect called Wahhabists. They're the group behind the 9/11 bombings. Saudi Arabia is their base, and indeed, a majority of the 9/11 suicide bombers were Saudis. The founder of Wahhabism put the House of Saud in power. In fact, about 19% of Sunni Muslims in the world are Sufis, who renounce all violence, much as the Quakers do. So to fear every Muslim you meet is as stupid as fearing every white man you meet on the basis that so many serial killers are white men, and serial killers get a lot of airtime on the news. If you look back far enough, the Persian Empire has made pivotal contributions to both Judaism and Christianity. And I know you know that what is now Iran was once called Persia. So long before Islam, the Persian Empire really threw a lifeline to Jews in Israel. Most of them had been sent into exile under Babylonian rule. But then the Persian ruler Cyrus defeated the Babylonian rulers. And so Israel was now under the rule of Persians, and it wasn't even called Israel. But anyway, so in the 6th century BC, Cyrus the Persian defeated the Babylonians. Jews who had been sent into exile under the Babylonians now were encouraged to return home safely to Jerusalem. Indeed, Cyrus oversaw the construction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. And for this reason, the book of Isaiah in Hebrew scripture refers to Cyrus as the Messiah, or the Anointed One in some translations. The two terms are synonymous. The Hebrew hopes for a Messiah were always at least of a political ruler who would ideally be a king, a Jewish king of Israel, like King David had been, or at least would be someone who helped Jews gain some degree of autonomy and relief from the oppression that, in fact, plagued them for so much of their history. Christianity also owes a lot to the Persian Empire. It was there that the Church of the East was born. It's sometimes called the Assyrian Church, sometimes called the Nestorian Church. It's called the Church of the East to distinguish it from what from their view was the Church of the West, and that was the church under the Roman Empire, which is what most Westerners are more familiar with. Legend traces that Church of the East all the way back to the Apostle Thomas, but there's not a lot of evidence that that really happened. The first sort of confirmed presence of Christianity in Persia came many centuries later after the Apostle Thomas. So this Church of the East is responsible for spreading Christianity into Asia. It is from there, where it enjoyed a stable home base, that missionaries went into China and into India. So, there you have it. Of the two major branches of Islam, only the smaller one envisions a national political clerical leader known as an Ayatollah. Within that smaller branch of Islam, Iran is the only one of three nations with a majority Shia population to attempt such theocratic rule under an Ayatollah. The branch of Islam that has an Ayatollah is not representative of the overwhelming majority of Muslims in the world. The West has had less contact with Shia Islam than it has with Sunni Islam. And Judaism once found needed safety in the Persian Empire, and Christianity would not have spread into Asia without the crucial church established in Persia. Here's that diagram. Thanks a lot for watching.